Hello and welcome to a brioche, two-color brioche tutorial, worked flat, continental style. So also known as picking or holding your working yarn in your left hand. I'm Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits, and I hope that this little tutorial inspires you to try your hand at some brioche knitting. If you'd like to work along with me, you will want to grab contrasting colors of yarn and cast on an odd number of stitches. I cast on 15 because that's a pretty easy amount to get some good back and forth practice on this technique. If you need to do that, go ahead and pause this video and just come back when you're ready. All right, so we are going to start with a setup row. So we actually have to set up our brioche. Get my yarn ball out of the way here. So the first stitch, waiting for my camera to focus here. There we go. We are just going to go ahead and knit. Now, the next move for brioche knitting is basically every other stitch. The first stitch we are going to, of the actual brioche, we are going to slip it and give it a little yarn over shawl. The next stitch we either knit or purl, and we just keep on repeating that. So we need to bring our yarn forward, slip one, yarn over, and then knit one. Yarn forward, and now this movement's called a slip one, yarn over. So you, with your yarn in front, slip the next stitch purlwise, moving it from your left hand needle to your right hand needle, and then that yarn over just goes right over top, and then we just knit the next stitch. So yarn forward, slip one, yarn over, knit one. 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 Now that we are to the end of our row, we actually in two-color brioche work every row twice before turning. So we need to get back to this side of our work. So we just simply grab onto our stitches, grab onto our needle, and pull it on through. And now we're going to join in our second color. So you know you've done this correctly if your first color's yarn that's connected to your ball is on the cord side. If it's over here, you haven't done it right. You need to turn it back and slide. All right, so for the purpose of this swatch, we are not going to be working our edge stitches with our contrast color. We're just going to knit them on the right side, purl them on the wrong side with our main color. So because of that, we're simply gonna just slip them right out of the way. So just take your right hand needle and slip them from your left needle over to your right. And now we're ready to start brioching. So slip your right hand needle into this little couple, which was our first slip one, yarn over. So if you kind of spread these stitches out, you'll actually see that now you have like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And so what we're going to do is every stitch that's 2, we are either going to knit or purl those together, which is called brioche knitting or brioche purling. And then our single stitches, those are the ones that we will now slip, and we'll give them a little yarn over shawl so that they're not lonely. Okay, so we are starting off with a couple. So I have inserted my needle as if to purl, and then I just take a loop of my new yarn, place that on, and I just purl it right in. Okay, so that was my first brioche purl. You can join your yarn, by the way, however you like. That's just the way I do it. Okay, so now we're at a single guy, so we need to do slip one, yarn over, and then brioche purl. Slip one, yarn over, 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 brioche purl. So what this might feel like is just like a purl two together. The reason we don't call it a purl two together is because in brioche, these couples, those are still counted as one stitch. So even though you see two strands of yarn, you still only count it as one. So I would still count this as 15 stitches on my needle, even though we see some double strands. So because it's not a decrease, we don't want to call it a purl two together. That's why we call it a brioche purl. But if it feels more intuitive to you, you can call it a purl two together. I would just put brioche before that and call it a brioche purl two together, so that as you begin reading patterns, you more quickly can grasp on to that language you're going to be seeing with brioche. All right, so this last stitch, we're not going to work with our contrast color. So you can just drop your contrast color to the front, and that's important. You don't want to push it to the back. Make sure it drops here to the front, and then slip that last stitch. And now that our two working yarns are together, we turn. And we're going to go back to using our main color first. And on this row, we're actually going to do what we just did with our blue. So get some yarn out here. There we go. We're just going to purl the edge stitch. It's not really part of our brioche. It's just like the frames. The first and last stitch are the frame on our brioche. All right, so up first is this little single guy. So we are going to slip one, yarn over, brioche purl. And now you'll notice from here on out, your couples will always be contrasting colors when working two color brioche. So you shouldn't, from this point on, ever have like two blue strands or two gray strands. They should be one of each. All right, slip one, yarn over, brioche purl. 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 Slip one, yarn over, and then we're just going to purl that last stitch. All right, so now you will notice that our yarn that is still attached to the yarn balls are on opposite sides of our swatch. So when your yarns are separate, you slide. So we are going to slide our stitches back to the other side. So now we're ready to use our blue yarn. And now we get to bark or brioche knit. A little quick rearrange there. All right, so again, we are not going to work this edge stitch with our contrast yarn, so I'm going to simply just slip it out of the way, moving it from left-hand needle to the right. And now I am going to brioche knit this first couple, these two strands together. Yarn forward. So you'll notice I only say yarn forward on my knit rows, and that's because once I knit, my yarn's in back. So it's a nice little reminder that before you do a slip one yarn over, your yarn always has to be in front before you start the movement. So yarn forward, slip one, yarn over, and that yarn over is such a subtle movement. We're not bringing the yarn back in front. We leave it in the back now so that we can brioche knit the next stitch. Yarn forward, slip one yarn over, brioche knit. Yarn forward, slip one yarn over, brioche knit, 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 and then I drop my contrast color where it naturally wants to fall, which on this row is to the back because I was knitting, and slip my last stitch. Again, my two colors are now back together so I can turn. And this will be the last row of the demonstration, because after this one, you will have done everything you need to just keep on practicing. If you find it easier, you might want to clip a little removable marker to the right side, which will be your side where the knit columns are the color you cast on with, just to help you if you set this down and come back to it to be like, okay, now I know which side of my work I'm on. All right. I'm going to go ahead and knit the first edge stitch, and then I yarn forward, slip one yarn over, bark one, yarn forward, slip one yarn over, bark one, yarn forward, slip one yarn over, bark one, yarn forward, slip one yarn over, bark one. And by bark one, I mean brioche knit. So bark and burp are the shorthand for brioche knit and brioche purl. Yarn forward, slip one yarn over, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one yarn over, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip one yarn over, and then I'm just going to knit that final edge stitch. My two yarns are separate, so it is time to slide. And I am now ready to use my contrast color, my blue yarn again. I'm going to go ahead and slip my edge stitch out of the way and brioche knit this first little couple. My yarn's already forward, so I just slip one, yarn over, brioche purl. Did I say brioche knit before, by the way? That was a brioche purl if I did. All right, my yarn's forward, so I slip one, yarn over, brioche purl. 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 Drop my yarn to the front and slip that last stitch. So there you go. That is the foundation of two color brioche worked flat. Here's our little baby brioche growing up. This is our right side where you can see that my light color, this really pale gray, is the really dominant knit stitches that are kind of popping towards the screen. If I flipped it over, you would see that happening with my blue stitches. So you can just keep repeating those two rows back and forth for your basic two color brioche worked flat. Happy knitting!